Digital modes. Um, they've become extremely popular, particularly FT8. It's apparently the most popular mode going today.
It's because you don't have to operate. You just turn the radio on, turn the computer on.
It's not quite that automatic, but at QRP levels, it allows you to make contacts uh, virtually around the world,
Okay.
where you might have trouble getting to New Zealand on your 5 watts. But on
Yeah,
FT8 with 5 watts, I probably could do New Zealand.
I've only done Australia with 100 watts.
Yeah. Because I get them easy at 50, probably even less.
Yeah,
And that's just with a vertical antenna, almost no gain.
little tiny itsy narrow band.
50 hertz. 20 meters. Normally, the digital modes are going to be between 14070 to 14112. And for PSK 31, it's down at the 14070 frequency. I forgot where RIDI is. I only tried that once.
What's higher, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's up
85,
like 075 or somewhere up 78, something.
maybe 7, maybe.
On 80 meters, the digital modes are in the 3585 to 3600 range. So in what segment of the 20-meter band are most digital mode operations commonly found?
Bottom of the band. Let's see, for 20 meters.
20 meters is going to be 14 megahertz.
Yeah, 71.
All right. Because CW is 14 to 1407, right? I think.
Yeah, it was up at 8.5. I was playing something 8.5 years back.
Well, that might be RIDI. I don't know.
Probably yours.
They're down in that narrow range, but yeah, I think you're right. It's up at the higher end of the digital modes. Which of the following is a common location for FT8?
74, 77.
All right. Almost everything turns out to be 7.4, except during a contest. And then they'll do an alternate like 7.5 or 7.6. Okay, FT8 is the most popular. You can make contacts very quickly because you only exchange call sign, grid location, and signal report. There's actually room for about 6 additional characters.
No, no, you don't. Your computer exchanges all that stuff.
No, you type those in. You do the additional characters.
Yeah,
Besides, you typed in the other message anyway. It's just the
yeah.
repeater. The computer repeats it.
2 years ago when you set it up.
Right. But just like a memory on your transceiver that you can put preloaded CW messages or voice messages, and you just press the button and it does those.
Yeah.
Same kind of thing.
And I don't have that on my Asus. I'm old.
You don't have it or you don't use it.
I
You
don't.
probably have it.
I don't have a voice recorder. I can pre-code a CW,
Okay.
but there's no voice.
Mine will do CW voice and something else. There's 3 modes
Yeah.
that you can store in memories.
Digital, whatever, probably RIDI or
Yeah.
ASK.
Okay. Okay. The other reason is that you can decode signals below the noise floor. With FT8, you can decode signals that are minus 21 dB
And that's,
relative to the noise floor.
and that's a little bit deceptive,
Well, why?
because if you're talking about full bandwidth
Okay,
versus the narrow, and that's,
right. It's
yeah,
it's relative to the 3 kilohertz
yeah,
noise floor.
Yeah.
So there's less power, but still, it's impressive.
oh, yeah.
And I think JT65 can do something like minus 28 or something. That's the one you use for moon bounce. And you need that. Okay. But in order to do the digital modes, your computer needs to be time synchronized. They say within 1 second. Really, it should be more like half a second or less. I mean, theoretically, you could still do it at a second, but the odds of decoding go way down.
Unless it's JS8 call. JS8 call is more forgiving. And JS8 call gives more ways to get synced up. You can sync up to another station. You can use, internet time servers, or you can use your GPS. But I don't think that FT8, I don't think you can sync off of another station.
No, well, I had to do kind of a deep dive in it because there was a question that came up and I didn't totally understand it. So I learned all about how it decodes and encodes, and it's amazing the stuff that it does. And it uses a thing called a Costas array that was developed for submarines to do the sonar stuff, where it sends a Costas array at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. And they're kind of unique patterns, and it's able to also get some time synchronization out of that, because in theory, it needs to be down like 100 milliseconds or better. So by doing all these other things, in addition to all the forward error correction, which is one of the reasons why it's able to decode, it's does some amazing stuff.
Yeah, you can lose 95% of the message and still get a full message.
Yeah. So which of the following is required when using FT8?
Baker. Yeah.
Okay. FT8 and FT4, they basically work the same, except FT4 only uses 4 tones, where FT8 uses 8 tones per symbol. So it can represent 3 digital bits at a time, where FT4 can only do 2. It operates on time slots. They're 15 sec. In the case of FT8, they're 15 seconds. FT4 is shorter. I forgot, but they're about half. So you receive for one time slot, 15 seconds, and then you transmit on the next time slot for 15 seconds. Turns out you're actually only transmitting about 13 of those seconds, because the first couple is part of the decode. But it takes 30 seconds for it to do one of its cycles, or whatever you want to call it. And normally you go through 3 cycles to make a contact. So which of the following is good practice when choosing a transmitting frequency to answer a station calling CQ using FT8? You probably could have explained that better.
On the station's frequency.
Well, okay. The correct answer is delta. So you want to find a clear spot in the waterfall, if there is such a thing, depending on,
Really?
yeah. 20 meters at the wrong time with good propagation, it'd be hard to find a empty spot. What they mean by the alternate time slot is when you're receiving them, that's when they're transmitting. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're picking them up on time slot 1, okay, you're going to transmit on time slot 2. Now in FT8, you can switch which times, switch the time slots around, because normally, you're only hearing people transmitting on time slot 1. So if somebody's transmitting on time slot 2 when you're transmitting, you don't hear them. So by switching it, you get the other half of the people that are on that same band.
I think that's why I'm gonna like for AC better. You have one call frequency, and then the software automatically QSYs both stations to an adjacent
Right.
channel.
If you set up a slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like VAR-AC.
How much communication do you really get on FT?
You get a contact, you get the call sign, you get the grid square, 4 characters, and you get a signal report. And there's
bonus character.
I think you can do 6. I know you can do 4, but I think you can do 6 additional characters.
So you're really not doing any message transmitting at all.
Not really.
No.
You're making contact.
All you're doing is playing with something.
Yeah, you set up your computer and radio and you let it run for 2 years and check off boxes, worked all continents, worked all, yeah. It's all your computer and radio.
Yeah. If only that simple, but yeah, it's definitely easier than trying to make a voice contact, especially on a single sideband.
And, JSA call uses a similar mode, but like really, you actually have a keyboard to keyboard conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Now,
I can find out what the weather is.
yeah, I can sometimes do that, because if you run JT Alert along with FT8, you can do messaging back and forth between the other station if they're online. And there you can type, I don't know what the limit is, long messages.
Yeah.
Most people aren't on, so you
This is why I
don't hear
about
anything.
FTA.
Okay. RTTY, here you go. RTTY's an old one, been around a long time. It uses FSK, where you use a one frequency to represent a 1, another one to represent a 0. The frequency shift is typically 170 hertz. I forgot what the normal 1 and 0 frequencies are. I think that actually was on the technician stuff, but I don't remember. The important part is the frequency shift, and that's how it determines the difference. Whatever the offset is, the frequency shift tells it the difference between a 1 and a 0. So what is the most common frequency shift for RTTY emissions in the amateur bands?
Billy.
170 hertz. Okay, in order to do a digital mode, you need to have an audio connection between your transceiver and the computer. You can do it with audio cables, output to input, input to output, with another control line for push to talk, or on more modern transceivers, you can just do it with a USB cable, and it does virtual audio over the USB. So it's a lot simpler to hook up. Let's see. In the case of most of the digital modes, it's doing what's called audio frequency shift keying. I'm not sure how that really differentiates from other frequency shift keying, but in fact, for FT8, technically it's Gaussian filtered, constant amplitude, constant phase, audio frequency shift keying. How's that for a mouthful? Normally you use LSB for RTTY and upper sideband for the JT65, JT9, FT8, FT4. It will be upper sideband in data mode.
Regardless of the band you're on.
Yes,
So the band protocols that we had before
for voice
are for voice only.
and CW.
Yep.
Well,
And CW doesn't matter.
CW doesn't matter, so it's really voice. Which mode is normally used when sending RTTY via AFSK and an SSB transmitter?
Little silly. Wow.
What is the standard sideband for JT65, JT9, FT4, FT8, and a bunch of other digital modes?
Oversized, but no, undersized, but
Yeah. It's just a convention. And I suspect if you tried to use lower sideband, you're going to get a mirror and your frequency shift is going to be off, right?
I'd imagine it should put the wrong. It's going to go the other way.
Right. So it probably couldn't decode it, which is why I say it has to match. Okay. So if you want to make a contact with the digital signal, you have to make sure that your mark and space frequencies are the same, not reversed, that you've got the correct baud rate, and that you're on the correct sideband. So all those things have to match in order to make a RTTY or FSK contact.
A lot of times, most of the digital modes support to read Solomon transmit ID and receive ID, so your software can automatically select the mode.
The sideband selection is going to be on the radio,
Yes,
but the others are going to be in the computer,
Yeah.
yes,
in your software. I think.
yes. And RTTY, we didn't talk about it much, is a old teletype mode,
Yeah.
radio teletype. So it's a message format. But JSA call is probably the more modern equivalent, I would say. Definitely operates at much weaker signals.
Yeah.
So what could be wrong if you cannot decode a RTTY or other FSK signal, even though you're tuned to the right frequency?
Delta.
Right. Any of those could mess you up. Okay, WinLink is a protocol that uses stations connected to the internet to transfer messages and data. It's packet radio. They have stations, or the internet stations, their gateways are called remote message servers. And I understand we have a new one around here. I haven't tried to do it. I'm not sure who put it up. Was it Richard? There was an email about it
Yeah.
maybe a month ago.
Yeah. on this gateway. I think they said it was actually out at the beach.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But the gateway stations monitor a specific frequency. And in order to make a connection, you have to send a connect message on that gateway frequency to get to that gateway to the internet as part of the WinLink. And what WinLink allows you to do is send messages and files and radiograms. I don't know if it supports pictures, although Richard sent me a map over VAR-AC, which is sort of the equivalent, a newer equivalent of WinLink. But I don't know if WinLink does it or not.
Well, the thing is that WinLink and the modes are a little bit different. WinLink is more the actual network. And you can use different modes like VAR-AC or Pactor.
No, don't you mix them up there. VARA is not the same as VAR-AC. VARA is the software modem
Yeah,
and WinLink uses VARA also, as
Yeah.
well as Pactor.
so you can use different modem types to
Right.
connect to the WinLink system.
Let's see. So which of the following describes WinLink?
There you go, Alpha. My all of your thought,
It's packet radio.
but not always.
It's a form of what? Well, they're always packets. You're sending packets with
Oh,
VARA
yeah.
FM or HF,
Okay, I was thinking Pactor instead of Packet.
and you can do VHF also because of VARA FM, and you can do satellite with VARA Sat, but I haven't not ready to try that yet. And VAR-AC supports all of those because we did VAR-AC with on FM on 2 meters. What's another name for a WinLink remote message server?
Gateway.
Right. See, a terminal node controller or a TNC wasn't that what they called like Pactor devices with proprietary boxes you have to buy to do Pactor? Huh?
It's a box.
A box. Expensive box.
Yeah.
Okay, so for digital modes, stations that are connected to the internet are called gateways. They monitor a particular frequency, so you have to send a connect message. This is sort of redundant from a previous slide. Which of the following is a way to establish contact with a digital messaging system gateway station? Send a connect message. Okay, see, Pactor uses error correction. I say it's still a good idea to find a clear frequency because just because it has error correction doesn't mean it can correct for all the interference. And because Pactor is a station to station, it's not a broadcast, so you cannot break in. You can't make a conference call, basically. If you do have interference with Pactor, you get timeouts, retries, because when it sends a packet, the receiving station doesn't receive it correctly. It sends back a NAC or an ARQ to repeat and resend the transmission. and there's normally some timeout or number of retries, and after so many tries, it will just essentially hang up. You get long pauses in the transmission with interference, like you see on internet sometimes when you see the little circle spinning. Uh, you may not even be able to establish a connection if interference is bad enough. If it's a busy channel, it says you can put the modem or the controller in a mode which allows monitoring communications without a connection. I'm not exactly clear on that one, but I guess it's like on a repeater, you monitor the input channel, maybe. Maybe you can help on that one, Byron.
I'm not exactly sure what that's talking about.
And the last one is you cannot join an existing contact. It's station to station.
Well, I think the black, a busy channel can be detected.
Yeah, but I don't understand how.
Well, either you're hearing something going on that frequency or you're not. If you're hearing something on the frequency, then it's busy.
Oh, okay. So I guess you would listen on the input frequency then.
Yeah.
Okay, digital operating procedures. VARA and PACTOR are two digital protocols. They're both packet forms used in amateur radio. WinLink uses VARA, which is in essence a software modem. And like I said, there's VARA HF, VARA FM, and VARA SAT that operate at different frequencies and modes. If you have interference with PACTOR or VARA, you can get errors and cause retries. You know, they resend packets because it does have some error correction in it, but if it can't correct it, then it asks for retransmission of the packet.
If you're not using VARA AC,
VAR AC.
VARA,
Yeah.
Are these all just type in type things?
Yes.
or yeah, you can do an email, you can do a small file.
Oh, pretty big files. Richard sent me a 30 kilobyte file.
Yeah.
And so are you going to take and be able to just scan across, have the computer online and say, oh, there's a signal, let's see what this is going on?
No, well, you can do like a CQ,
Uh-huh.
okay, or you can do a directed call. You put the call sign in, and if that other station is basically online with
At that frequency.
at the right.
So you have to, it's got to be
It's got a standard calling frequency. And then you have what they call slots that are they're like 5 kilohertz offset, something like that. And you can designate which slot you want to talk on, but you make contact on the standard calling frequency, and then the software will automatically do a QSY to whatever slot that you have picked. It's just an offset frequency.
And that's a VARA C.
And then you have, a messaging window where you can type and you see what you get back. It'll do store and forward. I can put a message or a file on somebody else's machine if I can contact it as a relay, and then the other person it's intended for can make contact and then pick it up. So it's a store and forward.
The WinLink is a store and forward system that has dedicated stations, okay, that have radio to radio mailboxes and also radio to internet. Okay. And the system is smart because it will automatically send your email to the last station that you contacted or logged into the system. So if you contact the system, your mail may not be there if you connecting to a different station, but once it finds out where you're connecting to, it will reroute your mail there.
And do we have a recommended what software to use?
Vara,
Well, you can use WinLink, okay, which uses VARA as the software modem, or you can use VAR-AC, which is a newer program that was written specifically to do the VARA modem stuff. And it's a little easier to use, I think, than WinLink. It's got newer features.
Are they something you go out and buy or?
No, that one's free. VARA is free for the slow mode.
and they
If you pay $60, then they open it up and you're not restricted to $300.
And my FT 991 doesn't care which one it is that's hooked up to USB.
No, and you run these on your computer anyway.
And the thing is, and this is a wonderful improvement because WinLink, when it was established, it ran through hardware, a Pactor modem, and those Pactor modems were a couple of grand. And the VARA actually outperforms the Pactor modems in most cases, if you have the full version.
Right. Because with a sound card in your computer, it actually, the VARA modem is a software modem. Okay, so it generates the sound just like when you're doing FT8 to do the modulation.
Now, if you're using the WinLink software and you're connected to the internet directly, you just set up a telnet session. And there's a little, drop down menu that tells you whether you want to do telnet, whether you want to do peer-to-peer, or whether you want to do the regular WinLink, radio to internet service.
And you can do VMail. You can send mail messages to it. That can be directed to an actual internet mail box.
Now, if you're sending to someone who's outside the WinLink email system, doesn't have a WinLink address, they are not going to be able to reply to your email unless you clear them in your little friendly list. So I couldn't send email to you from my Yahoo account or Gmail account unless you said I will receive, this email or this Yahoo.
But now you can do VAR-AC with your computer and your handy-talkie if you had a cable to hook up the computer to your handy-talkie. Depending on your handy-talkie, you may or may not be able to do it because you can do VAR FM on 2 meters.
I got the chirp programming one that one of that work.
I don't know. It depends. You may or may not. You may need a different cable, or you may need a signal link. It depends on the radio.
So this is for the past few years, I've been lazy. And because I'm not doing this, for hours at a time, we do this, once a week and do it for half hour. And it's back and forth. I'm not doing all the messages. I just and hold this up to my microphone and okay. Oh, yeah. Let me stop that. Yeah.
Okay, we better get back.
Yeah.
No telling what Amanda's thinking.
We may random Amanda off.
Oh, I doubt it.
I'm just
Are you still
listening.
waiting?
I'm here.
He's still
Good.
awake, Amanda.
Could you hear them?
I could hear him. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what is VARA?
Digital protocol for Windows.
Well, and see, they at the time they didn't know about VAR-AC.
Yeah.
Okay, so what symptoms may result from other signals interfering with a PACTOR or WinMore transmission?
All the above, I'll read about.
And I guess WinMore is kind of referring to WinLink. You're kind of shaking your head sort of obliquely.
It's similar to the pack torch.
Okay. How do you join a contact between two stations using the PACTOR protocol? That's an easy one.
There you go. Our broadcast is alpha.
Fire it. You don't.
No,
Station to station.
no. Oh, station to station, and it's not a three-way.
Right.
Wait for one to drop off and you take replacement.
Well, you have to do a connect, but yeah. Until they drop off, there's only one. Okay, so
They do some sort of split mode.
I'm sure somebody will make a change, an exception. Okay, mesh networking, I guess is becoming more popular. Nobody seems to totally understand it. From my understanding, people take commercial or consumer Wi-Fi equipment, routers and access points, modify the software or the firmware that's in them, and maybe do things to increase the power, add an amplifier or do some tweaks inside, not sure, and create a network of these where each one talks to the other ones that it can actually make contact with. So it becomes kind of a redundant network. So you can, if you have enough of them close enough together, you can find an alternate path from point A to point B through the mesh network.
And they changed the algorithm. It used to be more of a random or pseudo random. For now, it'll reach out to the furthest stations first that it's had contact with. And then it'll, work in if necessary or, continue working out.
Would SARnet be
SARnet is not
not a mesh?
a mesh.
Okay. And they use what? Microwave?
Microwave link.
So they just allow you to send and receive digital data over this network.
Hold on, maybe SARnet could be a mesh network.
Well, it could be, depending on how many stations and how, what the protocol is.
Yeah, how they're connected.
It doesn't matter how you connect from one to the other, wouldn't think. Although they wouldn't be using Wi-Fi stuff.
Because some stations do have more than one path.
Right.
And if you have more than one path.
And that's the whole point.
Yeah.
You have to have more than one path.
So we're getting into routers.
Oh, well,
Next thing they're gonna want a DNS server on it.
The military is all about mesh networking. after, Desert Storm. Because, they had pretty much abandoned HF radio, okay? And everything was going satellite. But then they found out that, the rear battle area command centers had one full satellite, but the people up front couldn't talk to these people.
Yeah.
And so they had to figure out how to redo this thing. So they started, looking at, different network topologies. And they even use HF bandwidth, which has, terrible bandwidth speed. But what they decided is they can give the soldiers Android devices with 98% of what they would, need to see on their screen preloaded on the device. That way you can have very short data turning on and off, like grid locations, type assets.
Like
stuff
FT8
that.
almost.
Mhm.
FTA, yeah, same idea as, small packets,
Right.
but,
Well, they could have made FT8 longer messages.
yeah. So same idea. So maybe you're only exchanging, 100 characters, but each of those characters is coded, for certain information. And, the military calls it Android Tactical Assault Kit. There are civilian versions for first responders, and then there's civilian versions for everyday consumers, but those will not work outside of a network environment. You can't go HL. You have to be hooked up to Wi-Fi.
Uh-huh. Okay, so what do you know about the Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network?
Arden. I know that is primarily out on the left coast.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So, and the Papa, I'm trying to think what they call that, the PapaNet. But that is one that's been quite popular, and they rechanged some to 5 gigahertz band allocation, which has really hampered the use of it. Because they were getting a nice network up and down the West Coast, especially in California, with lots of video, okay, with the voice, which is great for monitoring, large events. And then the FCC decided, well, we need to give some of this space back to commercial use.
Okay.
We have AeroNet on those with airborne repeaters that we can feed drone video off of.
Hmm.
I could put park an airplane at 6,500 foot, pick up, the transmitter is only 3.3 ounces with a HDMI USB that sits on the drone, and it'll transmit up to the aircraft. I repeat it, and incident command can have 5 screens seeing 5 drone videos all at once.
Nice.
That's how we saved the lives during Ian. Are we going to get into ALE on this also?
I don't think so.
Okay,
If we do, you can tell us about it.
I'm lost on it.
What is the primary purpose of an amateur radio emergency data network, mesh network?
Charlie.
Yep, Charlotte.
All right.
So ALE,